So yeah, I suppose with that we'll move on.
Yeah, we're going to round up the show this week with the rugby news of the week. So there's bits and bobs of news. The first is just world rankings update. The world rankings couldn't be less important in a World Cup year because we're having a tournament to decide them.
Yes.
South Africa with their draw in Wellington have overtaken England to move into the top 4.
There you go. Well, it's probably where they belong anyway. But they're just creeping up towards contenders, proper, nearly number 1.
Yeah, they had been down as low as 7 when Rassie took over, and they've been just slowly working their way back
improving.
Up. They were hurt a little bit by last November when they had that defeat to Wales.
Yes, yeah.
A couple of other bad. They lost to England and Twickenham would have frustrated them.
Sure, especially when they were so physically dominant in that game. Yeah. It was very strange that they.
And a semi-recurring theme for the Springboks, not to get bogged down on this quick bit of news, but a semi-recurring theme for them is to dominate games without it telling on the scoreboard.
And that's happened at the weekend just gone. The first half was all theirs, and they were 1 point down.
Even last weekend, they were significantly more superior to the Wallabies, and yet there was sort of like a 10-point game for up until the last few minutes. But I digress on that one. The next bit of news is that Toulon and Racing, unsurprising culprits, have been fined by the Eleanor of all companies or groups managing to show a bit of dignity, fining them for breaching the salary cap. Did you know there was a salary cap?
In France? Purely theoretical.
Well, they've been fined for breaching it. Toulon obviously have signed Epsveth and Sergio Parise this year. And it was just reading the Rugby Pass article on this about Boujalal's reaction to it, and he's obviously been running for Eleanor presidency, and he's
unsuccessfully, mercifully so far. But
he's still done it.
Stranger things have happened.
Well, in politics.
Boujalal,
he was advocating the France being the equivalent of the economic All Blacks.
Such a silly phrase he was coining.
Yeah, he was dogmatic in his approach that France there should be no salary cap. We should pump money into getting all the best players of rugby in there, and I guess has this sort of
dream of
tacit
Premier League.
Of being sort of like the Premier League, and it's so daft and short-sighted, and hopefully it ends up just coming unstuck for him because he's completely naive about the world of rugby, and nobody's ever going to care about Toulon. Outside of Toulon, nobody's ever going to want them to succeed because they build nothing. There's nothing to admire as compared to Toulouse. He must be raging at how well Toulouse have done with the young Frenchman. One of the quotes that he came out with was that the young Frenchman shouldn't be getting salaries they didn't earn.
It was mental. His backward, pig-headed thoughts on rugby are really annoying. But it's good to see him.
He wants to take all the best parts out of he wants to ruin the Test game by taking a bunch of South Sea Islanders and All Blacks and everyone else and not let them play for their countries because they have to play in the top 14. So he wants to ruin Test rugby, which is the biggest maker of money and viewed aspect of rugby by far.
Yes.
The World Cup will be scores more viewed. I mean, by a magnitude of 10, by a factor of 10, you would imagine the Rugby World Cup will be more viewed than the top 14. But he wants to ruin that. He wants to ruin, Welsh rugby, Irish rugby will take their stars, so their domestic leagues are going to be less interesting. Make it all about the top 14. And even if he managed to achieve all of that, he still wouldn't get, and he doesn't know it, he wouldn't get big sponsor money from America, he wouldn't get all Kiwis, people from New Zealand watching the top 14. He wouldn't get Irish people in any greater volume than they are now watching the top 14. It would just gut the game and end up making no money and no sense, and nobody would care anyway. Nobody's ever going to care about the top 14. Like I care about it from a rugby nerd perspective, but from a marketing perspective of being this economic giant, this idea that you have in your head of creating a Premier League where everybody cares about the goings on between Bordeaux Begla and Cast on a Sunday, it's a myth. It's not going to happen. No matter how many people you import, it's not going to happen.
Or how much money you pump into this idea, ill-advisedly as well. Like that fact, like the purchase of Sergio Parise for a ludicrous amount of money. It's just telling about how little he actually knows about the game on the pitch. He's a small man who wants a bunch of big men on his payroll.
Julian Savia is a typical example. He had been out of form and out of sorts a while before he signed him, and he signed him without knowing that because he doesn't understand the first thing about the game, and then berated him publicly when he didn't deliver on something that wasn't there when he signed him. I mean, he's an unbelievably daft and naive operator of a club.
Yeah.
And yet he consistently makes headlines because there's a danger.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a risk of him succeeding in all that. If he becomes Eleanor president, it's a bad thing for the game.
This is a world where Boris Johnson became prime minister and Donald Trump became president. And people who had been jokes with crazy ideas, who just sound like completely naive morons and are wrong about everything, end up just acquiring power.
Yes.
And there doesn't seem to be a lot you can do about it.
Mm-hmm. And he would definitely fit that mould.
He would, wouldn't he? He would just be the rugby equivalent.
Yes.
And he is that. So here's hoping that things go wrong for Boujalal and all of his future endeavours as per the game of rugby.
I hope so. And long live Toulouse.
And long live Toulouse, yeah.
So with that, I suppose we'll park that, because it's too easy to get into tirade levels when we bring up Boujalal on the podcast. And you'll notice the subscribers, we rarely bring him up, but when we do, it's not really positive. We can't really feign it.
Maybe he loves his family.
Maybe, I don't know, but I don't really care. I'm more about rugby. Rugby is my family, and he is a force for evil in our game.
Yes, truly.
But in good news, Jordie's re-signed for the Canes.
Yeah, you don't get everything blues. That's good for him. Yeah. Good for you, Jordie.
Yes, sticking with it. Go on. He may be playing 10 next year. Who knows?
Yeah, he's sort of meandered. I remember hearing an interview with him where he said that he wanted his first position was second 5/8 or first centre 12. Never seen him play 12.
No, I've rarely seen. Has he? He may have done actually worn 12 this season.
Yeah, he looks kind of like a 12, but I never really see him there. So
he would be quite an Aussie mould of 12. To be fair, because he has a kicking game as well.
He does have a kicking game. He's a strong carry game as well.
Yeah.
Be curious to see how he defend that channel. But either way, he's going to be playing on with the Canes wherever he is. Mm-hmm. Maybe at 10. Although I heard rumours that Cruden, if he was to return to Super Rugby,
might be coming to the Canes,
which to fill the Barrett void.
Yeah, and that does. To be fair, that's a good mould of player. It would be good for him to get the hell out of Montpellier. In similar to Boujalal fashion, Montpellier are not a force for good in the game. See our notes on Nagusa and Nadolo for reference. So it would be nice to see Cruden come back and join. He's signed on as a medical joker, I think, until after the World Cup. Cruden for Montpellier. But that leads us to, it seems he's eyeing up a move for Super Rugby,
which starts in January.
Yeah. So that's why he hasn't signed on further than that. And it also throws a bit of water on that rumour about him going to Glasgow.
Oh, it does.
Which would have been nice, but I think that's
team
now
up with
gone.
Dave Rennie, that's gone.
No, that's gone.
Didn't work out.
The other good news in terms of signing news is Kurtley Beale re-signs for the Taz, which means recommitted to the Aussie rugby. He's such a, like we were saying earlier on, why he gets the flack he does, I do not know. He is a legend of Australian rugby, and he is the best thing about it right now.
The greatest Aussie player of this era.
Yeah. Him and Pocock.
Sorry. Pocock keeps... Sorry, everybody. Pocock
because he's not there.
Yeah, Pocock is, of course, the greatest Aussie player of this era. Yeah. He is... apart from Pocock, the greatest Aussie player of this year.
Greatest Aussie back.
And he has a great attitude, and he seems like a leader in the Wallaby team and has taken the lead on this one. He's going to stay and finish his career with the Taz.
It's like a very similar thing to what Sam Warburton did when he was signing the first central contract for Wales. Yeah. It's a good vote of confidence in Wallaby rugby.
A guy like Kurtley, he could have been picked up for Montpellier or Toulon.
Boujalal probably could have given him a call and given him a big bag of money to come and get fat in France.
He's not big enough for Boujalal.
No, he's not, to be fair. You'd sooner see him at Racing.
Yeah.
But it could have been.
Indeed. But good for him. Good for him doing
definitely.
that. Yeah. It kind of makes me want to root for the Taz.
Does a little, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling. You don't normally like to root for the Taz.
Yeah, they're very difficult to root for.
It's true. Not as difficult as the Brumbies, but difficult.
Yeah.
It was easier when it was the Western Force.
It was a lot easier. Indeed. So much easier back then. But that's great news, and I'm happy to see Kurtley do that.
Yeah.
Then the next bit of news is sort of an odd one. To be honest with you, I have read a headline and I haven't looked into the story.
I read a bit about it.
So you tell us about it then.
Alright, so the female fan is an Irish fan, has taken legal action against the IRFU and the company that run the Aviva Stadium, which is New Stadium DIC, after she allegedly was struck by a ball in the game between Ireland and the All Blacks back in November. She was hit in the head by a ball, struck, and apparently now she's pursuing legal action, which is not unprecedented. I was reading in the article as well, there was a solicitor's take on it. Apparently it comes up, it's rare in rugby. I think this is one of the first cases of its kind in rugby. It happens in golf, it happens in baseball, small ball sports that can really hurt you, go much faster. I think there was like 101 cases that appear in soccer across the world last year as well, so it's not uncommon for a bigger ball sport to have these cases, but they tend to get thrown out because it's hard.
It's understood that when you attend these games, you're putting yourself into that kind of risk. Like it's hard to paint getting hit by a golf ball at a golf event where balls do routinely fly into the crowds as negligence by anybody.
No,
it's just you're taking a risk, and sometimes that comes up muckers for you.
This is it, and then you may think it's less risky in rugby, so the onus isn't on yourself. My point on this is it comes in the wake of you're probably not privy to Irish news if you're from anywhere else, but there's quite a claim culture that we're fighting, and there was a big story with a politician involved a little while ago to do with that, claiming for really frivolous reasons that are
more of a story about Irish litigation than anything else to do with rugby in a broader sense, and will likely not succeed.
Yes, I would. So I don't think it's thrown
it's
out.
that massive a story.
It's not a big headline. It is a headline, but it's one thing that vexed me. But the point I wanted to make about it is you were hit in the head by a rugby ball when Ireland were beating the All Blacks. Watch the ball. God damn it. Yeah. Where were you looking? Were you looking over your shoulder? Were you thinking no, watch the damn game? That's my take on it all.
Catch the ball.
Catch the ball.
Yeah,
this is it. I've seen kids catch the ball. I've seen guys walking up with 4 pints in their hands, flick a back heel and kick the ball back.
That was one guy. Well, he's a legend.
One legend of a man. But getting hit in the face by the ball, I have no sympathy at all, and I hope this gets thrown out. But it was one that popped up on Rugby Pass, so we figured we'd chuck it in there because it had the Irish thing in it as well. It really did surprise me when I was reading it.
An odd one anyway. Yeah. But hopefully nothing
comes of it, because nothing is deserved. This
is a curious story. For the second week in a row, we have a story, and for the second week in a row, it is about a guy I've never heard of.
Yes,
it was Miles Normandale getting a 2-year ban for testing positive for the banned substance clomiphene.
Clomiphene, yeah, which is apparently it's an estrogen suppressor that's associated with steroid use, because taking steroids interrupts your estrogen levels, so a lot of them take supplements and things like that. And this is a banned substance, prohibited substance, came up in a urine test. Your man himself, I was reading a bit about him, Normandale, had an interesting career where he was basically a semi-pro for Cardiff Blues in some of the lower tiers. He would rarely get Pro 14 outings. But he had a nasty injury in 2017 that caused him to pretty much play out. He was released from his contract while he was still recovering from the injury, so he kind of figured his career was over. Then once he'd gone through the rehab and stuff, he ended up getting an offer to come back and re-sign in a semi-professional capacity, and he went for it in 2018, late 2018, I think that was. Played a couple of games for them, and then it was a random urine test towards the end of 2018 where he came up positive for this.
So that 2-year ban
is him done. That's the end of his career, and rightly so. I think when these things come about, they need to be duly punished.
It's such an interesting dynamic going on. I feel like it's when a player is right on the cusp of something, but they can't quite get there, and they just need that extra edge. Like someone who's just not quite good enough to make it as a pro, and but even you'd wonder about higher levels than that, and it's so difficult to know what to even make of these stories. Are these stories an example of guys getting caught out by a rigorous testing system, which you'd like to think, or are they a little the tip of the iceberg, as it were, in terms of what's going on beneath the surface? It's just so difficult to know.
We don't know. We're not privy to it, so it's hard to even comment on it. But the comment we'll make is that it's the second story on this issue that's emerged in the last couple of weeks.
We're yet to see a high profile case.
Yeah.
The highest profile case is Grobler from back in the day. And actually there was a scandal with South African schools. That was quite rampant in South African schools rugby, which is utterly unsurprising, given that we saw tacit approvals of that sort of behaviour in Dublin schools from time to time. And not even we didn't even go to the biggest school in Dublin. So you would wonder, you don't know, but once they get into a system like for example, Leinster Rugby, if that stuff was going on, it would have to be institutionalised and going on with everybody.
Yes.
Because there's no way that it's happening without Leinster knowing.
Yes, there's such a micromanager of all their players that
So it would feel less likely that it's going on in Leinster with nothing being caught, and if it is going on in Leinster, the chances are it's like systemic cheating, which we can't allege because I don't think it's true.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's interesting though. It's something worth keeping an eye on. It's something that should be stamped out of the game entirely. So I have no objections to the 2-year ban being received for even though I do have some sympathy for the scenario but still no place for that in the sport, and that's just the case of it. I would have very little sympathy. You chose to do this, you know. I mean, they gotta own it, and I'm sure he is. But it was an interesting that it's popped up twice in the last few weeks. We'll be curious to see how many more of those stories emerge this side of the World Cup.
Hopefully none.
And then other news, Jack Noel has departed from the England squad to head back to England for just a surgical checkup on his ankle, apparently, which is part of the rehab process. They're still seemingly confident that he's going to be back for the World Cup, although they were deliberately vague as far as giving any time frame on return from injury.
I suspect you won't see him in August.
No. In any of those warm-up games, maybe not.
It's an interesting one. He could be a crucial enough player for them.
He's a workhorse. I really do like what he brings. I hope we're rooting for him to get back and
100%.
fit and fighting ready and be at the World Cup.
Absolutely.
Good to hear that he's going through all those appropriate checkups and not fighting through it, running it off, so to speak.
The Currie Cup has been going on in South Africa. I watched one of the games actually where the Lions managed to come back from behind to beat Western Province in Newlands.
30-28 away from home. It was probably the game of the weekend.
It was a great game. The Cheetahs also put a massive score on the Griquas, and the Bulls got a nice away win against the Pumas, and that's left the table with the Cheetahs and Griquas up top on 10 points. Golden Lions one behind on 9. Western Province be the Stormers equivalent on 7. Sharks and Bulls on 5 points each at 5 and 6, and bottom of the table on 3 points is the Pumas,
who look like they're going to be the ones to make way for probably the Jaguars.
Well, it's good to see the Sharks getting on the board with win last week. In fact, so that's a relief. And I'll keep a side eye on it.
They're definitely going to have a part to play in our rugby news of the week segments in the weeks to come. We're going to touch base. The Currie Cup's worth keeping an ear.
Keep it abreast of it anyway.
Yeah, it's not the international footy, so that's why it's been relegated to this slot. But still worth keeping an ear to the ground on that. And then finally, some interesting news. I thought was that Scandinavian fans from Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Norway are going to have access to the World Cup, kind of unprecedented access to the World Cup now that the Nordic Entertainment Group, or NENT as their acronym is, have bought the exclusive rights from World Rugby to broadcast the World Cup in Scandinavia. So that's a really good sign, I think. That's just it's a sign of the game growing. It's the appeal of the game growing, and means it's probably
people are going to be watching this. There's another sign that this World Cup is going to be the biggest ever.
And last World Cup was a huge success. 2015 was a huge success in England and
English. I wonder to what extent Japanese time will influence it a little bit.
I wonder.
It's obviously great that Scandinavia is going to get to watch it, but also they are in early morning, as opposed to in prime time as the English World Cup was. But we still get the impression that this is going to be the most viewed ever, that there's going to be more and more places.
More eyeballs from America, now obviously Scandinavia coming in as well.
And we should be set for an exciting, colourful future for the game where more and more nations are getting involved and embracing it and watching it. And I outside of concussion, which I think they're doing a very creditable job at addressing, I can't see many slip-ups between here and just the game growing. The game feels like it's on a track that's very positive.
For sure.
And long may it continue.
And this is just symptomatic of that. So if we have any Scandinavian viewers, happy to have you.
Welcome.
We're welcome
indeed.
Welcome into the world of rugby.
Thanks for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you enjoyed that video, please like down below and subscribe for more videos. And please enter the comments section to join our conversation. Thanks.